Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on the Herculean path, we continue our new beginning conversations, which will establish what we'll be doing in the future. And today we're joined by Michael Del Russi, and he's sharing his understanding of and enthusiasm for New Thought, as it's called. Greetings and welcome, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine. It's great to be with all of you.
Now, I came upon New Thought through my father. Through my mother,
Hmm
I came upon, the way of the heroes in Olympus through the stories she told me when I was a kid, the lessons I learned in Greek parochial school, and what cartoons and movies were playing on our little black and white TV. So
hmm
that informed me about the mythical elements of my past and the historical elements of my past. My father
hmm
had a weird philosophy, as we called it, because we didn't know where it came from, but it had to do with the power of the mind. So
hmm
later on my own, I found out what he was quoting, what he was talking about, and it was very clearly New Age and the New Thought. So
hmm
consider that my heritage from my father, and I've spent many, 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 many moons reading it and studying it and applying it. And it's good that I found a kindred soul in you because you seem to love that information as much as I do.
Well, I do because I think the possibilities are endless. And I think the only thing that prevents us from reaching the pinnacle of our ability is quite frankly, our characteristics, our personalities. The more we have a clear pathway to our goals in terms of our thoughts, uh, the more effective our new thought or the law of attraction, the law of manifestation, whatever title you want to give it, becomes more effective. So I think at the end of the day, there's so many people out there, and I have seen myself. As a matter of fact, if I didn't see it, I, it would have been hard for me to believe. It's not that I didn't believe in answered prayer. I do believe prayer and universal intelligence are connected, and we are connected to that intelligence. So we are expressions of that intelligence. That's part of what a new thought teaches. So, but if I didn't see it myself, I wouldn't have believed it. And I thank the universe immensely for what I was able to receive through meditation, through affirmation, prayer, and thought. Uh, it doesn't always work, and we can get into that later. Why sometimes we don't see the results that we had hoped for, that we were expecting. But I was curious. Do you recall who your father's inspirations might have been at that time?
He would talk about how it's all in your mind, and the mind rules everything, and if you set ideas in your mind, then they're going to happen. And if you have to think good ideas, you have to think strong ideas, you have to have tell yourself that you should be confident. But he was very much a believer in the power of thought. So again, it took me a
Mhm.
while to find the material he was talking about, and it was definitely around while he was growing up here. Then once I found it, it became a treasure trove to explore. I too believe that things happen, and I'll share two quick stories. They might not seem very exciting, but anyway, when I was a teenager, I wanted a Conan book. And as a fan of Conan, I'm sure you understand it. But it was hard to find, and the regular bookstores that dealt with out of print books couldn't find it. I put requests for it and nothing. So I really wanted this book, and it didn't show up, and I forgot about it. And then
Mhm.
that was when I was in my teenage years. So I forgot all about it and no longer really actively sought the book or even remembered wanting the book. And then one day when I was in my 30s, I had a very strong feeling to go to the Barnes and Noble that was in Forest Hills in Queens. And it was an urgent feeling to go there. So I got up, got dressed, I followed my urges, and I went there. And I'm just looking around, not knowing what I'm looking for. And then I spotted it in one of the discount bins, the book that I've been looking for when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
I went to the manager to ask if they had any more books from this lot because there might be other Conan books. And he took the book, he looked it up on the computer, and he found that he didn't know how that book wound up there even. It wasn't in their inventory. So he let me buy the
Mhm.
book for like $3, and I had the book. But I'd forgotten about wanting the book and asking the universe for it. And the universe didn't forget,
Mhm.
even like decades later. And my other story I've shared many times before is I had an
Mhm.
idea to create a community for metaphysicians and creative folk who don't normally pursue the path of wealth. So it'd be like a retirement
Mhm.
community. And I
Mhm.
researched it and knew that I need millions of dollars to do it. So I pitched the idea to the universe and I said, I think that this is a good idea. A lot of people would benefit from this. And these are people who dedicate their lives to others. So it would remove a lot of the hardship that they face and the uncertainty that they face when they're older in our society, which isn't always
Mhm.
kind towards older people. So
That's certain.
I let it go. And then
Mhm.
within a day or two, millions of dollars started pouring into my life. But it wasn't real millions of dollars. It was like play millions of dollars. It was like,
Really.
yeah, it was like some of them had Obama on it. Some of them had the Statue of Liberty on it. Some of them had, uh, what do you call it? Other things. People were giving me
Mhm.
candy bars that were in $1 million wrappers that looked like money. So I have a whole stack of these things, and I still have them on my altar to remind me of the story. So
Mhm.
two things struck me. Something listened and something responded. And it
Mhm.
must have been more difficult to find fake $1 million bills to funnel at me than it would be to gather real money and
The
funnel it.
real thing.
But some the force that listened and responded had a sense of humor, or it decided that that wouldn't be a good idea in the long run, or that I shouldn't do it. But it was
Mhm.
pretty strange getting millions of dollars all the time. And again, I wish it was real, but it's real in the fact that it exists and I still have it. But it wasn't real to the extent that I could spend it on anything.
Right. Was there a power? Was there a feeling of expectation prior to you receiving this uh, fake money? I mean, was there a feeling of expectation,
Well,
or was it not?
I've learned not to expect when, because the
Mhm.
book taught me that. Because again, obviously, I forgot about it. I forgot all about.
Mhm.
Although I still like Conan and still read Conan, I'm not a
Mhm.
collector of Conan anymore, and I don't go out of my way to dig up every Conan
Right.
book or comic or game that comes
Mhm.
out like I was once. So I let it go and I forgot about it. But the universe didn't forget, and it pulled me with an urge to go look there, and I found it. So I learned the lesson that things come in their own time. So
Mhm.
I wasn't expecting anything to happen right away, but I was expecting that
Mhm.
something would happen when something happens.
Well, the one thing we seem to have learned from some of the great teachers, and now with the new physics, of course, validates a lot of this. But
Hmm.
I know that Neville Goddard, I was reading his work the other day, and his statement, I think, was right on target when he said imagination and faith are the secrets of creation. And I think to a large degree, he's absolutely right. In my own life, I know that I can't say exactly why or how. I can't give an explanation except that thought thoughts are things and thoughts mean things. Everything we know has energy. And I know many times in my life, if I just expected something to happen, and I used to say to a friend of mine when she was alive, say, I don't know why I expect I'm going to get news. Something's I'm going to hear something. She would say to me, well, is it good news or bad news? If I feel like it's good news, and I can honestly tell you that 6 times out of 10, uh, it was surprisingly good news.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, these things can happen. The other story that I mean, I'm still amazed even as I'm telling you the story now. I think I told you once before, but I'll tell you again because, well, I know the integrity of the man, and that was my father. And there were witnesses, and he was a little boy. I think he was about 5 years old. And the dog catcher had come. They were giving his dog away. The dog catcher would come in a wagon back in those
Yes.
early days. And he came and he picked up the dog, and my father was out in the street, out in the corner, in the corner, and he was crying. And my grandmother was there, and my aunt, his sister, was looking out the window. And so they picked up the dog, and he's on his way up the corner. An absolute true story. And my grandmother retold this story many times. As he was driving away, my father yelled out, "I hope you get 4 flat tires." That's a little boy. Well, the guy reaches the corner, he gets 2 flat tires.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as true as I'm sitting here now. And he said, my father told the story many times. He said, that guy turned around and gave me the dirtiest look, he said, you could imagine. He said, and my grandmother and my aunt, who was very conservative, she said, it's true, Michael. She said, I was looking out the window. I saw it happen to myself. My grandmother told me the story many times. A coincidence? Perhaps. But it certainly stops and makes you think.
It certainly is.
I mean, is it possible that thought energy, pure thought energy, and the pure thought energy of a child could actually have that kind of force? Well, again, I would say, why not? Why not? We know everything has energy. And now, in this day and age, with the new physics, we know that intention also matters. It's not just energy, it's the intention, the direction of that energy. So if that's so, and I believe that the evidence is pretty strong at this point, God only knows what we're able to achieve that we're not even aware of yet. We think, well, we know thoughts are things, we know thoughts are powerful. We do believe in the law of attraction because I think we have seen it happen in our lives. But, there's always, for me, I can only speak for myself now, that third dimensional thinking always comes into play. And for me, it's unfortunate, and I can't tell you why, because I love the possibilities of the law of attraction. I love the possibilities of new thought, because there are no blockades, there are no roadblocks, so to speak. If you're thinking new thought, if you believe in new thought, it's pure thought, and it's the power of expectation. But why, when people often ask, well, why didn't this happen? I was meditating, I visualized, I had a vision board, I spoke affirmations daily, and the only answer I would have is that, well, we receive to the level of our expectation. If there's some doubt, if there's some second guessing, so to speak, in terms of what our goals are, then yes, it's possible we may not receive what we're trying to manifest. It doesn't mean we're bad people, it doesn't. It means that we will receive to the level of our own expectation. But that's a true story, and it's an amazing one. And there have been other things that have happened in my family. And ironically, when I was with Karen as well, my dear friend, that till this day, as I speak to you now, when it comes to the power of thought, I cannot explain by natural law. That's why I know there's something here, not out there, although it may be out there as well, but here right amongst us, where you're sitting right now, and where there's something here. And every once in a while, that veil to the other world, the other side, opens. Whether it opens through the power of our thought, which I believe it does, as well as other areas of other mechanisms, so to speak, I don't know. But I've seen enough in my lifetime, and that there's no doubt in my mind that it's so.
Yeah, I also believe in the power of thought. And my father planted the seeds, and I've grown them and cultivated them over the years. Like, as you know, I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So
Yes, yes.
one of the first things I did was I looked up online who's beat it, and what did they do to beat it. And I found some people
Hmm.
to have beaten it. I found other people who claim not to have beaten it, but it doesn't really affect their life. And they've actually gone on to do amazing things like win contests and athletic ones, and run
Hmm.
marathons and compete and set Guinness World Records. So it is possible not to let this defeat you. And I looked especially for what state of mind they were in when they decided that they weren't going to go along with the script. And I found
Hmm.
that the attitudes are very familiar to me. They're similar attitudes that I hold all the time. So I was comforted by that. I'm reading one now. I would put it up to show the cover, but I tried before we started speaking, it wasn't coming out anyway. But it's called Power of the Mind and Parkinson's Disease, and it's by
Oh,
Ward Summer. I tried to reach Mr. Summer, but unfortunately he had passed away a number of years ago. But he talks about what he did when he found out he had Parkinson's disease, and how he started uh, like competing in martial arts, and he became a black belt, and he would enter
amazing,
Parkinson's disease. And then he decided he wanted to be a
amazing.
scuba diver, so he became a scuba diver. So he still had Parkinson's, and he still had some of the problems that people with Parkinson's encounter, but he didn't let the
Right.
problems define him or break him. He rose up to it and decided that this is his life. He has Parkinson's, so how can he live the best life possible, with the Parkinson's? So I think,
That's really exciting. That's exciting to hear that.
yeah, it is. And this is the second time reading the book, and I have like six more books written by people who also shared their stories. So I'm going to be reading those as well. And
Mhm.
exercise 5 times a day now for short periods, 15, 20 minutes, because they found that exercise helps delay the spread of Parkinson's, or the rate that it does what it
Mhm.
does. And it also extends the life of the medications, because after a while, the medications stop working with Parkinson's. So,
Well, I think stimulating the metabolism and getting the circulation going certainly helps.
yeah, I think so. And I'll understand it more as I progress on my own journey. But as you know, I've
Hmm.
always admired the Herculean physique, the physique that was made famous by the ancient Greeks and Romans in their sculpture, and which
Yeah.
our own culture, our own modern world made famous through sword and sandal movies, especially the earlier ones. So instead of releasing that dream, I've decided to feed it. And the physique is certainly attainable to me. I've attained it many times in my life, between not
Hmm.
attaining it and attaining it. So now I have a goal, and I'm going to work toward that, and to look as impressive as I could possibly look now that I'm in my late 60s.
But that's exciting. That's certainly motivating to every one of the champions that may be listening right now, because it's doable.
It's
It's
doable.
doable. It's absolutely doable, and it's there to manifest. All we have to do is put in the effort and the consciousness, apply the consciousness, which I think is also very important. I notice myself when my consciousness is not right, my training doesn't go as I wish it would. But when my consciousness is right, like sometimes I'll be feeling a little lazy. I don't know. And I'll suddenly, and this may sound funny to you, but it actually motivates me. I'll imagine a cover of a Muscle Builder or Mr. America magazine from, say, the 1960s, and
Uh-huh.
I'll visualize Frank Zane on the cover as an example, or Harold Poole. I still feel Harold had one of the most unique physiques ever, even by today's standards. But all of a sudden, within 15 seconds, I'm motivated. I'm motivated. As much as I did not want to get up off that sofa, I did. And I take a workout. My workouts are no longer than yours. My workout might be 15, 20 minutes, maybe at the most. But I like to train quickly. I train with virtually no rest between sets, little or no rest. And when I'm done, I feel renewed. I feel renewed from a standpoint of consciousness and a standpoint of my physical being as well. So, I don't think there's no longer any doubt that New Thought, which, I mean, as we know, as we've covered, began in this country around the 19th century. Supposedly, somebody by the name of Phineas Quimby was
Yes.
you're familiar with. He was the starting point, if you will. He was the starting point, and from then on, many others came along. There are many great teachers. Constantly emphasizing the reality that our mind and our bodies are not separate. We and in Western medicine, as you know, we've taught for so many decades that the mind and the separate are basically separate things. You want to treat the mind, fine. We need to treat the body, let's do so. But it never occurred to contemporary medicine that the mind and the body can definitely work as one and do work as one. So, I mean, that was the beginning of a whole new world. And I certainly think that it was a breakthrough time as far as accepting the fact that spirituality and science are interrelated.
Right.
And I think we have yet, I really believe this, we have yet to fulfill all of its potential. I really, really do believe that.
Well, we live, we move forward, we grow. I know that one of the things I do is whenever I have a new doctor or I'm in a new treatment facility, they're going
Mm-hmm.
to have their way that they think I should do it, and I'll try their way. But I've
Mm-hmm.
found by trying other people's ways that usually those ways don't work. I'll give it a chance. I'll give it lots of time. And again, even
Right.
though we don't agree on this particular point, with my body, the high
Mm-hmm.
fat, high to medium level of protein and the low carb diet seems to work to control blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the same arguments too from the doctors that basically I'm increasing my chances of heart disease, of strokes, of heart attacks. But then what do you call it? Whenever I start eating carbohydrates again, even in small amounts, my blood sugar numbers start going up, and then it becomes, oh, your blood pressure's out, your blood sugar's out of control. Well, of course it's out of control. I'm eating carbs. I told you this would happen. So,
Right.
I think from now on, I made a pact with myself that I would stick with what's worked for the past couple of decades with me and just not go back to carbs, regardless of what anybody says.
Well, and I think that's the key. You know, we're all
Different.
universes unto ourselves,
Yes.
right? And I think we should be open. People sometimes debate these things. They argue about it. And they bring up facts, figures, studies. And I think we should introduce each other what we have learned. I think that part of our existence is true. But I don't think there has to be any room for debate or argument because in the end, it's an individual journey. We are universes unto ourselves, and we will discover what's best for us. We will discover what's the kingdom of God individually as well as collectively is within.
And
And
it
I do
doesn't have to be the same for everybody. Everybody could have their own unique way. And
exactly.
I agree with you. It's not something to argue over, it's something to share. And again, neither of us are
Yes.
doctors, neither of us are nutritionists, but we've dealt with these issues through our entire lifetime. So we picked up a thing or two. And I don't think either of us is out to convince anybody that ours is the only right,
No.
but we're sharing our experience and what's worked for us, what didn't work for us, and it'll be different than what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But that's okay. We're getting the
Mhm.
information out there. People can explore on their own and make their own decisions, and who knows what'll work for them.
Absolutely. And, I'm grateful in many ways that, we have so much information available to us, whether it be the consciousness for the power of the mind. And we are fortunate to live in a time where perhaps we have even too much information available to us. But we have so many authors, researchers, writers, to choose from in terms of, because even with new thought, there's so many techniques. I know Ernest Holmes always used to say, vibration also matters. Write your affirmations down. Have an affirmation notebook. And I've turned out I've had several, and but also speak your affirmations. Speak them. Speak them out loud, because vibration matters. All things, all matter is vibrating. We know that. So vibration matters. But what's interesting is, with new thought, is it's the level of vibration. It's not just vibration. It's the level and the quality of the vibration. And where does that come from? Well, that comes from basically what we're thinking. And as the theory goes, the lighter our thoughts are, happier our thoughts are. Happiness is very important. The state of mind is so important. And with happiness comes usually the power of expectation. So when you're expecting, you just know it. You know that you're going to buy that new piece of exercise equipment, even though you don't have the money. You
Right.
expect it. And, so many times it's happened in my life, and I would imagine it's happened in your life at times. Have there been times when you visualize yourself in a certain scenario? I know you had a TV program at one time, I believe, and
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that TV program, because I'd like to hear about it.
I I decided one day that I wanted to have a television program. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to get one, and I never went to journalism school. I never really went to acting school, but I knew I wanted a television program. So everyone
Mm-hmm.
I shared this dream with laughed at me and told me, "Oh, who do I think I am? And I'll never do it." But I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
accept that. So it's like, "Okay, what can I do today to get a television program?" So I bought a
Mm-hmm.
notebook and I got a pen and I started writing down what I would do with the television program if I had one. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I imagined what topics I would cover, what guests I would have. Would I have other people who were eccentric and a little bit different, like myself, as characters? And would it be, how much would be fact, how much would be fiction, and so on. So I just imagined all those things, and I'd write them in the notebook. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing happened for like a year. I've been
Mm-hmm.
once or twice in my life in those where somebody stops you from the news in the street and asks your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asked my opinion on a couple of those things. And when I was a kid, somebody wrote a newspaper article because I said something clever, I guess, about something, and they put it in the local newspaper in the Catskills. But that was my experience with TV. Not
Mm-hmm.
much, but and not for many years. But anyway, I went about doing what I do, and I just wrote down what my imagination showed me. And then
Mm-hmm.
one day, I got a telephone call from a woman named May Eisenberg, and
Mm-hmm.
May Eisenberg wanted to know if I could come on her show as a guest on cable TV. So she had read an article I wrote about extraterrestrials who incarnate among humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
they're born into humanity or they come into humanity when the soul leaves, wanderers and walk-ins, they're called. So I'd written an
Mhm.
article
Right.
about it, and usually I get people responding. Nobody responded to this except May, but she asked me to be on TV. So I
Mhm.
went down there to the television studio, and May was all upset. So I asked her what's wrong, and she said that her co-host got picked up by a bigger show, by the Jenny Jones show. Remember Jenny Jones?
Oh, of course I do. Of course
So
I
her,
do.
her friend who was the co-host on her show was now a regular presence on the Jenny Jones show. So she didn't have a co-host. So she asked me, "Can you co-host?" So I never done it before, but I was
Mhm.
confident that I could do it. So uh, I said, "Sure, I could do it." And then I had to learn when to look at the cameras, when not to look at the cameras, how to look at the cameras, so it didn't look like I'm looking at the cameras. And I had to learn all the cues. But I was like the guest host, and then if she could make the show, I'd be the host. And then other people saw me on the shows and invited me to be a guest or a guest host on their shows. So
Mhm.
anyway, I was doing that for like a few years. And then came the news that they were closing the station because it was merging with another station up in Yonkers.
I see.
So they were talking to the hosts and people and telling them, that whether they were keeping the show or that it was a repetition show. So
Mhm.
they asked to speak to me. So I didn't know why, because I wasn't the host of a show or the producer. I was just somebody who was on shows periodically and increasingly. So they told
Mhm.
me that they liked my versatility and the fact that I was on all these shows. And they asked me if I had my own show, what would I do with it? So remember, I've been writing for years in a notebook.
Mhm.
So when it came to the moment when I was asked, I was able to coherently tell them what my idea for the show was and who I would have on for guests and things I would do and blah blah blah. So they said, "Great, we'd love to give you your own show." So I had the show handed to me,
That's wonderful. That's incredible.
and the
That's
show
incredible.
Thor the Barbarian, and I used to walk around New York with dressed in fur and leather like a barbarian. I had a giant sword that was strapped to my back, and I had um, minstrels with DV cams recording my adventures, and it was a part social commentary, part human exploration, and part comedy. It was a little bit of everything. It was a variety show, and I did it for like 3 years. And by the time I'd finished doing that, I had made a movie, and I had gotten on cable in different parts of the nation and also on digital TV, which was like pretty well spread out. When my wife and I went looking for a house in Pennsylvania, we went to the
Mhm.
homes of people who'd seen the show, so they knew who I was in rural Pennsylvania because of my show. So anyway,
I'm very surprised I didn't come across it because I watched a lot of cable at that time. I don't know what years are we going back to, would you
we're
say?
we're going back to the mid to late uh, the late 80s until the mid 90s, and then I had other
Really?
specials going on to like 2000.
Mhm. Well, I don't know how I missed you because I used to watch quite a bit. I used to watch a program. I was on her program. She came out of Clifton. It was the city hall in Clifton. They had a movie studio there and everything in there. Police station was there. Her name was I. Her last name was Schumann. I forget her first name, but she was very, very popular. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you recall this. I don't know if this before your time or not, but there used to be a very pretty girl who used to give the lottery numbers in New Jersey. Where they would stop and for 10 minutes she would spin the lottery numbers. And anyway, uh, she was on Miss Schumann's program. And then a few weeks later, much to everybody's shock, they had found out that she had passed away from
Oh,
cancer. No, nobody even knew she had cancer. I forgot her name right now, unfortunately, but it's the last thing. But anyway, many local entertainers appeared on her show, and I appeared on her show back in let's see, early 90s, I would say. It was probably the early 90s. I had a tape of it somewhere, but Lord knows that's long gone. But I think her name was Jean or Joanne Schumann. She was very, very popular.
The name rings a
So,
bell. I don't remember anything about her.
yeah, and she had some pretty big people on there. I know she had. I don't know if you remember this group. They were from uh, Bergen County originally. Do you remember the Rascals?
No, I didn't
Oh,
spend a
okay,
lot of time in Bergen County. My parents moved to Bergen County, and I was already a
I see.
teenager, so I didn't really. I'd sleep there occasionally. I had a room, um,
Uh-huh.
but that was it for Bergen County. And as soon as I was able to, I left Bergen County, and moved back to New York. Now I've been in Bergen County for like over a decade. But as a
Right.
kid,
Well, they had big hit records like "People Gotta Be Free," "Groovin'," "How Can I Be Sure." I mean, they were at one time they were so big that the writing team of Eddie Brigati and Felix Cavalier were being compared to McCartney, Lennon. Believe it or not.
oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. That's how many big hits they had. As a matter of fact, about 4 years ago, was it? Uh, the guy who used to appear on The Sopranos all the time, I forget his name, he got the original group back together. So they did a tour. It was an audio visual tour where they would show movies when they were younger, and they would play some music live on stage. And I was thrilled because I was a big Rascals fan at the time. But yeah, they were known worldwide. But yeah, they were on her show when they first started out. They were on her show. Many of these local, TV programs, they were great because they were outlets. They were outlets for up and coming local talent. Which I thought was good.
Yeah, if
Uh,
I continued with it, because movie offers were starting to come in, and a lot of other appearances on television shows. But at that particular point in my life, I decided to move to Pennsylvania and live in the woods on a mountain. So,
it's something I wish I was doing right now.
yes, we did that for like a decade, and then we moved back to Bergen
Hmm.
County. Um, but yeah, a lot of the things that I wrote in Notebook actually got filmed and made. Not everything, but if I had believed
Hmm.
what people told me that there's no way I could have a TV show because I never went to journalism school, I never went to acting school. If I believed them, I never would have had it.
Well, that was quite an achievement, to be sure. Here we are again with the power of belief. And I honestly believe that there's substance to it. And in Scripture it says faith, and I love this when they use this term. By the way, I read Scripture both from a spiritual aspect, if you will, but more so from a metaphysical aspect. And
Hmm.
when you're reading a lot of Scripture from a metaphysical aspect, like Neville Goddard obviously did, and he did quite a bit of writing. Uh, you really start to get the metaphysical meanings from what he said. And one of my favorite scriptures is, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen." That now, if you just really stop and analyze that statement, that means a lot. There's a lot of meaning in that statement. This faith is the substance. We know that faith is invisible, yet they call it a substance because everything starts as an idea. Everything starts as an idea, a concept. So somehow, some way, there's a substance there, and it's the evidence of things unseen. What was once unseen now can readily become seen. It's really amazing. We take so much for granted, I think, when it comes to our concepts, our thinking, our thoughts, our ideas, our goals. We take it, a lot of it we take it for granted. And I'm speaking for myself first. I'll sit here and I'll come up with four or five different ideas uh, that I feel are more than just passing nothings. They mean something. There's some stuff, but then many times I'll disregard them. But we shouldn't, because faith is the substance. It's the beginning. It's the foundation. Just like all beliefs are energy. Beliefs produce energy. Voice produces energy. Everything produces energy. And it's really, if you step back and really look at the foundation of our existence, it's really fascinating. It really is. And especially now that we have become fully aware that our thoughts can actually affect the tiniest particles of matter. It's really amazing. And one of these days, I think we're going to make some huge strides in this area in terms of science and what we can do with our lives. I mean, we already see what we're doing with AI and some of these other things. And all of this starts off, all of this is pure energy. It all starts off as energy and moves on from there. But if you read some ancient scriptures, you come across quotations and meditations and whatever that really force you to sit back and think, what are we really all about? Is there more to us than what we were taught? In your culture, in Greek culture, that's, I think, has been more true, because mythology, religion, and your everyday existence, went hand in hand. It went hand in hand in so many ways.
It's very true, and that's why I right now with my neuropathy and my Parkinson's, writing is difficult in notebooks, so I have to give that up. I can't read what I'm
Mm-hmm.
what I'm writing, so it doesn't really help me anymore. But I think
Mm-hmm.
in my head and I speak it aloud, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps. But I wanted to be an author, and I wanted to be a
Mm-hmm.
paranormal investigator, and
Oh yeah.
I've been published in over 20 paranormal anthologies, and I'm actually a Llewellyn author now. The article I wrote for Llewellyn is coming out in the book in November, and it's on Amazon already. And there's
Oh,
a
well, you're gonna have to keep keep me posted on that.
and so again, also I used to write things down I wanted to try, and I'll give you an example of that. One of the things I wrote down was to fly an airplane. And
Mm-hmm.
I went out to California to visit some friends, and I always would cook Greek food for them. So these friends decided to do something for me, and one of them was a flight instructor and asked if I'd like to fly a plane. So I was going to say no, but then it's like, no, it's on my list. So I flew a plane for an hour and a half. He was an instructor, so I wasn't in any danger. But I flew a plane over San Diego for an hour and a half, and I never wanted to do it again after that, but I did it. So cross it off the list. So I believe in writing these lists down and keeping them in your head, because the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities come up. And if you know that it's something that you want, you could say yes to it rather than no, or you could pay attention to it rather than ignore it. Because I believe that opportunities come by all the time, but we're
Mm-hmm.
closed off to them many times.
What prompted that desire to fly? Was there any specific feeling or mood, or did you just was it just something you decided you would really like to try? Was there
It was
a
something I wanted
special?
to try. I wanted to see what it was like. And again, people told me, "Oh, you've never been to airplane pilot school," So okay, but I
Mm-hmm.
got to fly a plane, and I think that's the important point. These things existed in my imagination, like the shows did, and many other
Mm-hmm.
things that I could talk about. And some of them were quite like I admired Timothy Green Beckley, whose publishing house now houses a lot of my writing, and Brad
Mm-hmm.
Steiger. And I got to talk to Brad Steiger. I got to get to know Tim Beckley, and I'm still in touch with his
Mm-hmm.
family. And I wanted to be an intrepid investigator of mysteries who shared my adventures through the written word, and I got to do that. And in fact, one of Tim Beckley's folks made a website article about me. That was in one of their books reprinted, about how I'm like their newest intrepid investigator. So I didn't try to make that happen. That kind of happened. Uh, and I was very pleased that it happened. And again, I imagined it first. I wanted it first. And
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
let it out there, and the universe was very kind to me and responded and allowed me to experience some of these things that I wanted.
I have found in my own life, and Lord knows there's been my share of negative thinking. But I noticed that when I held a goal or a vision, or I saw
Mhm.
myself in a picture in the back of my mind, and I held to that picture, and there are many in the areas New Thought will also teach this method. To hold the picture in the back of your mind, see yourself in that picture.
Right.
Uh, that's that's another and amazingly enough, more times than not, it happens. It may not happen exactly at the time you would want it, but more times than not, somehow, some way, you see yourself in that picture. I had always been drawn to the labor movement, but I
Hmm.
never dreamed. I'm very shy by nature. I never dreamed I could ever uh, be effective in a position like that. Well, not only was I effective, I was very proud of what I did for 10 years. I made speeches in front of 40 people,
Awesome.
and it was, if you knew me intimately, you would know it's something that I never thought I could do. But I motivated a lot of people. I felt in the right direction. And but the picture was always there. I would like to do that. I wish I could be a part of that. And it happened. It happened. And I just think seeing yourself in that picture, in the picture, that also matters. So is vibration through words, written affirmations are extremely important, and also seeing yourself there. You know, being who you are, seeing yourself as who you're visualizing who you are. Many in the field. I remember somebody by the name of Charles Capps used to teach this all the time. He used to say, "See yourself in that picture. Be who you want to be. Be that person. Be that picture." As you had done that. You had done that, and I think that's a big part of making your dreams and your manifestations become reality here in this dimension. I really believe that's a big part of it. The exciting aspect of it, whether you Charles Fillmore is also I always he's a very plain writer, very plain in his writing, very clear. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who began the Unity Centers for Spiritual Living, as Ernest Holmes started his the Science of Mind Centers for Spiritual Living. That's what they're called these days. And there were so many different techniques you can put forth to utilize to bring these dreams and goals into manifestation. And hopefully on our next program, we'll cover even more because there are so many more. But yeah, it's an exciting journey. And it's a journey that, and I'll say this just for myself, was denied us. It was denied us. I love my Catholicism because I love Catholicism because we don't know how much of it is authentic, but there's a magic in ceremony. I heard
Hmm.
a Protestant, I heard a Protestant preacher say, which would surprise me. He said this. He said there's power in Catholicism and the ceremonies of Catholicism, which many people criticize, and I myself criticized before I understood what being spiritual or seeking spirituality really meant. And there's power in medallions and crystals and putting a focus, putting your thoughts on these various relics and how they could become meaningful in your life. I believe in using holy oil. And I believe there's nothing wrong with that. Points of contact. because it's all, if it's fueled by your thought, it has power. So I think all of that is exciting and it can be very meaningful in your life.
I agree with you. And actually, the article of mine or the chapter of mine that's in the book coming out in November deals with that very that very thought. I talk
Really.
about the household shrine and the things that people would do when I was growing up, and it was very powerful and very effective. And as I grew into a different way of looking at the universe and reacting to the universe, I started becoming aware that maybe the ways that we look at things could be different, but like with the Tower of Babel, maybe we're all saying the same thing, but we're killing each
Hmm.
other over the different ways we're saying the same thing.
Which is ironic. When will you be? Now, is this a book written totally by you, or is this various
No,
authors?
it's written by various authors, and it started out as one of my podcasts on Block Talk Radio. And then
Oh,
it lasted for like 7 years. We were talking for like 7 years about all these different topics. And unfortunately, a lot of that was lost when Block Talk Radio went out of business. But we had 7 years worth of conversations on two different channels. One was CERN, where I started off on, and then on my own channel, Mount Olympus Presents. And
oh, that sounds like fun.
yeah, and so from our conversation, somebody suggested maybe we should write a book, and they pitched it to Llewellyn, and almost everyone there except for me and I think somebody else was a Llewellyn author. So Llewellyn said, write a proposal. So we wrote a proposal, and now a little bit more than 2 years later, the book is coming out. So that too, it started out with a cool idea. I had a conversation with Brandy Williams, whose work I admired in books. She had an idea. I offered a platform for the idea, and then the idea grew and changed, and here we
Mhm.
are. So I too believe in the power of ideas, the power of thoughts, and in seeing
Absolutely.
yourself already in the situations that you want. The universe just taught me that it doesn't always happen when you think it's going to happen, but just let it go. It'll happen when it's time. And enough weird
Uh,
things have happened to remind me of that thing I learned, that I'm content with it. And our
well, yeah.
is up,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
When do you anticipate this book being released? Do you have any idea?
in November.
By November. Okay. Well, please keep us posted because I would love to purchase a copy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's coming out in
Yeah.
November, and it's a book about theurgy,
Okay. Well,
and
that's exciting in itself.
it's 7 different ways because there's 7 different authors of using theurgy to anchor the divine into your daily life.
That's exciting. Well, I'll be looking forward to that.
Well, thank you, and
So, yeah, please keep us posted.
I most certainly will, and I thank you. And today was great. I'm sure we need to repeat it very often. And how about we just do a show devoted to New Thought? This is where we can talk about other uh, topics on other days, but we'll devote a day a month to New Thought.
Well, absolutely. And I would also like to share with the champions that are listening new thought affirmations. We can begin and end the program with affirmations to lift their spirits and heighten their energies as they leave us.
That sounds
And
great.
I think that would be not only a heck of a lot of fun, but will really leave our listeners with some uh, spiritual enthusiasm, if you will, to carry on the rest of the week. So maybe we can add some affirmations to the program.
That sounds fantastic. Let's do it.
Um, uh, uh, when you get an opportunity, because if, there's another phone number that I may have to, uh, because I have temporarily misplaced my notebook. I know I'll find it. There's another phone number I should have too, is there not?
I believe so. I'll, I'll,
Just
I'll,
sort of,
tomorrow I'll give you a call.
all right, okay. And I enjoyed this program immensely, and I thank you for the opportunity to share with the audience our concepts because I think they can benefit by it.
as do I, and you are very active in the world and you share very generously with others. And how can people get in contact with you and follow you and tap into all the wonderful writings that you've put together and you make available to people?
Well, they can go to my Facebook, which is simply Michael Del Russi Facebook. Or they can write to me at Michael Del Russi, 135 Hazel Street, Clifton, New Jersey, apartment 7E, 07011. They can submit their affirmations and prayer requests, prayer petitions. Positive prayer is all part of what I do. And if they can write them down, send them to me, and I will write them back with a prayer and affirmation that they can use on a daily basis.
Very incredibly awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. You're a great friend. I'm glad that we connected and that we're doing this, and I look forward to greater adventures ahead.
I as well. God bless everyone.
Bless everyone. Good night, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Until next time, joyous journeys and amazing adventures.